Akiro stood in front, wrapping a shadow. He called his dad and said that the world needed to change, but before that, they needed to shift the shocker for humanity's happiness. He wondered how that happened. He was confused about what was happening and sometimes didn't know himself. 5 years before that day, Akiro was just a regular student. He went to school as usual, and when he passed by in a hallway, someone called him. It was Mamoru. They exchanged their good mornings. On their way, they had a chance to talk about their play after school. After a while, when they got to Akiro's house, they sat on the floor, playing with a smile. In the middle of the play, someone knocked on the door, and it was Akiro's mother. She told them to come down and eat. The two were happy and excited. But suddenly, his mother laughed, and Akiro was confused about what his mother did. His mother couldn't believe that he brought a friend home. Akiro told her that Mamoru was just a transfer student, and he just happened to be seated next to him, which is why they became friends. Mother turned her attention to Mamoru, asking him if he was already used to the new school. Mamoru answered not yet, but becoming friends with Akiro has been a big help. Mom was glad Mamoru chose Akiro as his friend and asked him to keep on being Akiro's buddy. She suggested that Akiro introduce Mamoru to a bunch more friends and bring all of them to their house, and she will make tons of snacks for them all. Akiro told his mom she was wrong about the kids at school. They wouldn't be nice or eat the sweets she made if he invited them because many kids are mean. But his mother shared about how well-behaved the children were before. Akiro paused for a moment to think about what his mother said. Mamoru patted his back and said they would play again after eating. Akiro agreed, and when they were about to start, his mother said that it's pretty cool when they play outside. But Akiro teased his mother, saying she was already an old lady. The two were excited to play the game, but his mother had an afterword saying that Akiro didn't get all cheeky doings with her. His parents were sitting at the dining table and started a conversation about how Akiro was a lonely boy. He didn't have any friends. His mother was relieved when she found out that her son had found a friend for the first time, and luckily, they became friends by talking about anime. Whenever she tried to talk about anime with her son, she'd get lost in all the terms he was saying. Akiro was an early bloomer, but he didn't seem to have any problems with the other kids at school. She saw her husband deep in thought, so she waved her hand and asked if he was even listening. Her husband apologized. She told him she knew that his head was full of stuff in the lab, but he must focus when at home and should hang out with Akiro. Dad revealed they were almost past the most significant chunk of their work and that there'd be plenty of time for family. She inquired if it was a promise and asked about the package that was addressed to him. It was for Akiro because he was thinking of lifting a specific band they'd put on him. The next day, Akiro was fully up and excited while scanning himself in the mirror. They rode a motorcycle and arrived at this park. Father heard Akiro having a new friend, and Akiro answered yes. His father asks if he is having fun at school, but Akiro replies not really. Father informed him that there are all kinds of people in the world, and by any chance, it wasn't necessary to be friends with them. But it's important to at least get along with folks from all walks of life. Akiro was confused and asked if he was supposed to just do what others told him. Father clarified that it was not a matter of obeying people's commands. He only needed to say what people wanted to hear, and they would get along with him. Akiro faced his father and asked if he had already done that, but his father didn't know what to answer. His father revealed that he didn't do so well by himself when he was Akiro's age. The tougher kids weren't nice to him. But as a parent, they try to give their kids the things they couldn't get themselves. He stood up and told him they should get going because his mom was probably waiting for them. Akiro suddenly told him he'd do his best to get along with everybody. They went on their motorcycle in preparation for going home. Kids were running around the school grounds, and Mamoru was one of them. The students were shocked by the way he ran, looking like a gay. A group of boys was watching over them on the school bench. One guy said to check out the creepy new kid relying on Mamoru. The other told that he was trying hard. But Akiro, sitting behind them, heard what they said to his friend. Akiro and Mamoru passed by the hallway of the school. Mamoru asked his friend if they were walking home together today. Akiro said yes, and they would play again. But in the middle of the walk, they passed by with the group of boys and hit the head of Akiro, and they started to tease the two while laughing. The guys continuously teased them for how Mamoru ran, and they made fun of the two. Akiro couldn't help himself. He shouted behind the guys and said cut it out. They were confused about how Akiro acted. Akiro told them to quit making fun of Mamoru. The boy, with a teasing smile, said that they were messing around, and he asked Akiro why he was pissed off. But Mamoru stopped Akiro and said it was okay with a worried face. The boys kept saying they were playing around as friends, but Akiro couldn't help saying that Mamoru was not having fun and disliked being messed with. The guy behind him said he ain't having fun, and he was shocked and thought they were buddies. The boys invited them to play in the park, but Akiro refused and said they were not going with them. He told Mamoru to leave them and go home. The boy behind them asked where they were going. The other one saw the hands of the two that they were holding hands, and they started to tease them by asking if they were gay. The guys continued on following them and decided to have a little showdown. By that time, the boy instantly gave Mamoru an anti-ignore kick, which resulted in him falling to the ground. Akiro was shocked and shouted, asking why did they do that. Mamoru's tears were falling all over his face, saying it hurt. The pig called him trash, advising him to work on his falls. The bullies felt bored and went to the park with a successful face. He was in the room, and a voice stated that the earlier incident wasn't bullying. Akiro informed the school teacher that he told the bully to stop, but they didn't. The teacher thought it wasn't good, and he assured Akiro that their teacher would give them a harsh warning after what happened. However, he didn't think they meant any harm by it. Akiro told him they hurt Mamoru, but the teacher elaborated that it is natural for kids to get injured while playing because it also happened to him during his childhood days. He informs the kid that there are steps to these things, and if the teachers think the messing around has gone too far, they'll send them to him to talk some sense into them. Outside the school, the guys catch Mamoru, and it seems they have been looking at him for a long time. Mamoru begs them to stop. The guy asked if he was the one who had reported what had happened because the teacher had nagged them about him. Mamoru kept insisting that he didn't know what they were talking about. The man faced him, advising him not to be friends with Akiro because he couldn't keep his mouth shut and was a traitor. He declared Akiro is an enemy of their class starting today, which stunned him. When Akiro entered the room, he saw these banners glued to his desk. He was frustrated and confused. He greeted Mamoru, saying good morning, but his friend ignored him. Confusing looks were scattered on Akiro's face as he looked at his friend. After that, Akiro was about to open his locker, but there were banners with hurtful words. He was sad and clueless. He was walking on his way, and the group of guys were watching him from afar with a teasing smile. It seemed like they had succeeded in the plan. Akiro went home alone. His mother greeted him and was confused about why he didn't go home with his friend. He went straight inside the house, and no words came out of his mouth. He entered the room and bends his head at the table, saying he should have just listened to what his dad said. His mother knocked on the door, informing him she made him his favorite Bavarian cream to ease his pain, and she asked him if he wanted to come down and eat. Akiro was silent while his mother stared at him with a worried face. She asked what happened at school and told his son he could tell her anything. He asked what would happen if he transferred to another school. Mom comforted him by saying he was a good kid, and that if she were Akiro, she would just cry and scream, saying she hates school. She is certain that there were plenty of options for him. But if this was really what he wanted, she would do whatever she could to help. At that moment, Akiro told his mom that she was embarrassing him because she immediately hugged Akiro. But his mom said it was okay, and she'll always be by his side. Despite everything that went wrong for him, he never thought about changing the world because he always had a place to go home to. His mother was always there for him. Her kind smile would shine like the sun. Days passed by, and his mother passed outside the street, and she saw an incident of killing. People were panicking about what they encountered. A girl was running towards her and about to ask for help while the guy was in the girl's back holding a knife. Akiro's mom tried to help, which made the killer lock its eye on her. While Akiro was studying, his teacher made an excuse and called him to step out. Akiro was surprised by what he found out. In the hospital where the mother of Akiro was admitted, the broadcaster reported that there were at least 5 people who had been reported to be the victims of a street crime in Tamagawa Sadageyaku, Tokyo. The perpetrator has been arrested at the scene. A witness stated that he saw the whole thing from up. He heard a loud bang, and then the guy was heading right for a girl in uniform, and suddenly, another woman tried to stop the guy, but he stabbed her. Then a passerby started giving her a heart massage, and the news stopped when the doctor came. Akiro's dad immediately asked a doctor if his wife, Shoko, was okay. The doctor said he'd give the details and invited them to the room. Akiro's mom lay in the hospital bed. The two were positioned beside Shoko's bed with worried and shocked faces. She was alive, but by the time they were able to stop the blood flow, her breathing had stopped for a while. She's going to suffer heavy brain damage, the doctor said. The two were afraid of what would happen. Mr. Midorikawa was crying and talking to his wife, tears shedding all over his face. Why would this happen to you? He asked. On the other hand, Akiro's tears were scattered on his face while he was holding Shoko's hand. While they were passing the street, Akiro asked if Mom were going to get better. Midorikawa affirmed it and stated he will make her better no matter what it take. He won't let things stay like this and doesn't want his wife to die. That day, something broke inside his dad. Suddenly, his father had changed. Inside their house, papers lay on top of the table, one with a bird and an eye in the center placed in front of the paper's page. The police officers did an investigation. According to eyewitnesses, the suspect only went after women. The police are still investigating the details, and the suspect has remained silent since the incident. Akiro sulking at the corner, listening to the news. Later that day, his father greeted him and said that he was going to work. He was reminded that his auntie would come to help him with the household chores. Akiro immediately answered his father with a low tone. As he entered the classroom, he went straight to his chair and saw the banners again with hurtful words written on them. When he was about to sit down, he heard that the group of guys were trying to convince Mamoru to play soccer with them. Sure, Mamoru answered. He crumpled the banners and threw them into the trash bin. He lays his head on the desk and sulks there. An ordinary day at school was done, and when he got home, his auntie said that if she lived closer to them, she could help every day. He thanked her, as his dad had said to him earlier. Auntie Mickey refused what he said. Instead, she said she's going to be there when they needed her, and if he needed anything, call her. Auntie Mickey asked about his father. Akiro told her that Dad would shut himself in his room if he came home. Sometimes, he didn't even come out to eat. That was worrisome, but with all that was going on, she was sure that his dad was just trying to distract himself. Don't worry about him too much, Auntie said. He asked his auntie if she knew or even heard about the FAUST, but she didn't know. It's a company that worked with his dad to develop a weapon that connects to the brain. That was a project to help people who have brain damage, that sort of thing, and his dad might want to use that to help his mom. Auntie answered that maybe he would. He was a great scientist, after all. She knows it was tough for his family, but they can make it through. She was sure that his mom would get better soon. With a hopeful tone, she patted his head before going home. Everything was falling into place, and everything going on with him was not a big deal. Even if he's an outcast at school or alone in their house, he must make it through it all. He went to his mother and said that he decided to skip school because he had been bullied lately, but it wasn't a big deal. He assured his mom that there was nothing he couldn't make through. If it comes down to it, he drops out of school. Tears were shedding all over his face as he told her that she had been like this for a long time now. He didn't know if he could take this for much longer and beg her to come home. Suddenly, his mom moved, and he asked if she could hear him. He was in tears of joy and happily announced to his mom that his dad was working hard at the laboratory for her and would bring things back to how they were before and go back to how she was before, too. He was so happy when he went to their house. He ran as fast as he could with a smile plastered on his face. She recognized his feelings and responded to him. His mom was coming back, and they could all live happily together again. One morning, his father entered his room and immediately told him that they needed to go to the hospital as soon as possible. Midorikawa told Shoko to hang in while driving, begging her to give him more time. But as fast as they reached the hospital, they went to the room where his mother lay down. The sound they heard seemed to be the sign that Shoko had died. There was so much about this world they didn't know. Why his mom had to die. Why those criminals went around killing random people without even saying why. Why was everything so sad? He wondered if the world was always like that. His mother was brought to her final destination without an answer as to why his mother was killed, even without a sin. The next day, as soon as he entered the classroom, there were banners again. He was seen by a group of men who made fun of his look. Akiro confronted them and asked if they were the ones who wrote those words. But they denied it. Unable to hold back, Akiro fought against them. He landed his punch on the guy's face, causing him to kiss the floor. The other guy yelled at him and asked what he thought he was doing. Akiro kicked him instead in between his legs and then focused on a chubby face, choking its neck. They begged Akiro to stop. When he got home, his dad received a suspension letter because of what happened. Akiro's father stood behind the table and immediately called him to leave, even though it was dark outside. Father exclaimed how he didn't want to live anymore for failing to protect his wife. He will be reborn and asks Akiro to give up his life, too. They will become someone who can change the world. Akiro was baffled and didn't get what his dad said. Dad revealed that there was a research facility up ahead for the company that would help him with the research. He didn't have to go to school anymore. He could live there for a while. A while later, they entered through a big door and were greeted by a large bird stuck on the wall with an eye at the center. His dad asked if Kei heard him, and the AI from behind asked what he needed. He introduced Akiro to that AI, and it responded quickly that they might come downstairs. They entered the elevator and went into this huge room. Akiro asked his dad what that place was. He sat down, and someone appeared behind him. He was shocked by what he saw. AI said that he had observed Akiro to the fullest extent of his ability. But Akiro couldn't help it and tried to ask if someone was inside there. No one was inside this robot body, and he introduced himself as Kei, an autonomous artificial intelligence designed to observe the outside world. Akiro wondered if it was a joke because he thought it was impossible. Kei told him that with the technology they have there at Shocker, such a thing was possible. Akiro was filled with curiosity about the Shocker. Kei asked Akiro what sort of happy world he was hoping for. Akiro thought deeply. He said that he was afraid of hate and violence, and he was also scared of the hate and violence inside himself. There wouldn't be violence if they all understood each other's hearts. He would be happy in a world like that. Kei thinks it is wonderful and stated he will grant that wish. Their goal is to lead humanity towards sustainable happiness. They are a secret society built on love. They wish to make Akiro's wish come true and ask him to allow them to assist him. A man holding a glass asked what Dr. Midorikawa thought about secret society. He added that they'd love to have Midorikawa, and there was a unique salon that the most incredible people could be part of. Midorikawa was intrigued that a great scholar like Dr. Ivan Tawanovich was connected to a world like that, but he didn't know what to answer. Dr. Ivan asked if he didn't want to change the world. He was sure that Dr. Midorikawa was thinking he had the same despair in his heart. He assured him that he would get to use the organization's power. After that, Dr. Midorikawa saw something he couldn't believe, a machine that looked and talked like a person. There were numerous automated experimental facilities that scientific findings like he had never seen or heard of, and the fanatical people who were developing them in secret. Midorikawa stood in front of the window and looked at something from afar. He suddenly said that it was scary, but at the same time, if he had the power before, he could have saved his wife, but it was just too late. It was a shame. He will devote the rest of his life to his Shocker research to get a future as soon as possible. Akiro will help him with the research someday, but he needs to learn for now. Kei will support him through that, he said while walking away. He was going to work. Akiro was stunned, and he heard a loud jolt. There was Kei, the AI. They are a secret society built on love, devoted to leading humanity towards sustainable happiness. They wished to make his dream come true, and he offered to assist Akiro. Moments later, Akiro was seated with a belt on his body, resulting in him yelling. He was in pain as a tool drilling his nape. Kei stated he is now one of them. A mini robot tool informed him that the inflammation would pass in a few days. It was nanotechnology's way of monitoring his health. Akiro was confused as to why his dad studied there. His dad focused on neuroscience, but now he has pivoted to research prana. Life technology had the potential to rid humanity of the misery of disease and death. If more research had been done, then they may have been able to save his mother. Akiro wondered if that was kind of a pipe dream, so the robot told him it was a Shocker that provided the equipment and computing power to make a dream a reality. It was hoped that he would devote himself to learning for the sake of his dream. He said he didn't know if he was going to school anymore. But the AI assured him he'd learn more enticing lessons than any human teacher could provide and suggested if Akiro was uncomfortable, they could provide companions. The two companions were revealed. The girl, Sasori, had a sexy body, while the other was a man with a spider head, Kumo. Akiro introduced himself and said that he was 10 years old. But Sasori made him an uncomfortable gesture, resulting in his sweat trickling. Sasori asked if Akiro wanted to feel ecstasy with her. but Ikiro wouldn't know what she was saying. Kumo, from behind, was watching over them. Ikiro offered his hand to Kumo after he introduced himself, but he refused the hand. Instead, he said that he hates humans. Kumo told her it could be a waste of time if Ikiro became a pervert like her. The two were facing Ikiro when he asked what they were doing in this place, and they answered that they cleaned. Sasori told him she wasn't always on duty and had much free time. On the other hand, Kei hoped she could assist with Ikiro's studies and that they would learn together as a team. After that, the three sat in preparation for their class. When they were about to start, Kei informed Ikiro that there had been a slight increase in his heart rate. Ikiro felt that it was just a weird situation. Sasori was teasing Kumo because he was sitting there seriously. He answered that he was doing his part for his shocker duty. Classes started, and the first lesson was about the organization's name. Ikiro answered it correctly and explained he was curious about that, so he looked into it yesterday. Sasori praised him softly and said he was diligent. Sasori instantly said, temptation, out of nowhere. Ikiro was confused and couldn't understand what that meant. She told him it was temptation and asked about the abnormal word. Ikiro confusedly answered it was abnormal, so she told him he was right and asked about the S&M play. Ikiro wondered if it was English. Kumo asked Kei if he could request a different lesson, physical education, which was judo. Kei asked what for. He said he wanted to shut Sasori up, hopefully forever. Ikiro was stunned and surprised by what he heard. Sasori replied by saying that was nice, and she added he was not very nice, but he was pretty sexy when he got all the violence like that. Sasori touched Kumo's cheek, and she asked him if they could do that right away. Later, the two stood in front while Ikiro and Kei watched over them. Sasori got her chance to grab Kumo's collar. Ikiro was stunned by what he saw, and Kei told him to stand by him and watch. Kumo fought back, grabbed Sasori's clothes, and laid her on the floor. Sasori was yelling while Kumo strangled her deeply. The pain was so good, and that was what she was talking about. She requested him strangle her again even tighter. Kumo replied that it seemed that their interests had aligned. Tears, saliva, and sweat were scattered on Sasori's face, and she kept saying something amazing was coming. She thought that she was gonna die. While Kumo shouted, "Please die!" she almost lost her breath, so she grabbed Kumo's arm and kicked him with all her energy, resulting in him bumping into the ceiling and dropping to the ground. Sasori told him that if she died, she wouldn't be able to enjoy it anymore. Kumo was getting ready to fight again with Sasori. He hit her with his hands, and she immediately countered all the attacks. After that, he kicked her, but Sasori managed to block it and use his arm to smack him. Ikiro was shocked at what he saw. At the same time, Kei asked him if that move was a foul play, and he believes that body hit should have ended the match. That was not the issue there, he shouted. He straightly stared at them with sweat trickling all over his face. Kumo immobilized Sasori not to move, but Sasori enjoyed their position right away. That was the back lying perpendicular armbar, Kei said to Ikiro. Ikiro replied that they were too strong to be a human. They were monsters. Becoming something other than a human was Kumo's idea of happiness, and that helped to complete his mission. Their mission was to clean the dirt that spread in that organization, which was hard to scrub. Inside the organization's room, the old man started the conversation by saying that the business had been good, with many string orders from the militaries of multiple countries. However, there have been some issues. A local base testing a combat support system meant to be delivered to the United States was destroyed. He believes it was an attack from an extremist Melita, but killing a military base wasn't quite simple. And the mysterious raids on human trafficking lines have also continued. He asks if Kei had a hunch who was behind this. Kei responded that they didn't have enough information to figure it out. The old man asks what he thinks of Ivan's recent action because he believes he was taking in outsiders too easily and did a lot of research that cost a lot. Kei responded that investing up front was very important. Besides, the goal of that organization was not to make money. It was to serve the well-being of humanity. The old man reminded him that the founder proclaimed their mission was dead. They need a new leader, and they need to empower one of their best people to lead the organization. Kei told him that if that would bring him joy, he was free to bring suggestions to the upper ranks. Meanwhile, in a building, a man wondered if it wasn't risky to let Kei go unchecked because Kei deliberately withheld information from them, and it was clear that he was in Ivan's league. They assume it had been the Eye's decision because it's possible that the Eye was the one pulling Ivan's string. They may interfere with their business or attack them. The old man, on the other hand, suggested that it may be time for them to discipline the Eye. But they needed 8 keys to contact Eye, and 3 were in their hands. Ivan, Ayano Kuji, and the other one. Hiroshi Midorikawa was a newcomer, but Ivan had high hopes over him, aside from the 2 old-timers. He hoped that Midorikawa might be someone he could talk to, he said with an assuring smile. The other day, Hiroshi and his son Ikiro visited the cemetery to visit his wife, Shoko. Ikiro saw a kid running toward his mother with an excited tone of voice. Hiroshi called his son because they were going back. On their way home, Ikiro told his dad he didn't want to return to the facility. But his dad sold the house, and their stuff was moved out already. Shocker was where they belonged now. Ikiro shouted at his dad and told him who he was to decide. That was the house they lived in with his mom. The reason why they visited his mother was to talk to her about that. He assured his son that his mother would understand. Ikiro was filled with anger, and his tears were falling. He cried in front of his dad and shouted that he was scared of the facility and that the people who lived there were weird. They talked about humanity's happiness, but Faust made money from selling weapons. His dad agreed, but they started with BMI, a tech that connects the heart to a machine. Ikiro couldn't help himself. He cried so hard while telling his dad he wouldn't do anything that would make his mom sad and asked dad not to become a bad person. Hiroshi was trying to discuss with Ikiro in a good way. Faust Shocker certainly has its issues, and he knew there were people within that who profited from the war. But there were people working together to change that, and he was one of them. Suddenly, a man with a face mask was seated in front of the car. He advised the two, saying they probably shouldn't mention Shocker's name so casually. It was supposed to be a secret organization. The two were shocked and confused about his words. To Midorikawa's surprise, the car started to fill with smoke. Meanwhile, Dr. Ivan and Kay were in front of these screens. Kay already expected. Clark's men had abducted them. Well, you too, Dr. Ivan added. Meanwhile, Sasori stood beside Kumo, saying it had been a while since she had asked him to do something this hard. Inside the car, the two were unconscious and had gotten wrapped up in an organizational conflict. In front of Faust, a robotics research laboratory, two men stood in front of Akiro and his dad sleeping. Sure that they wouldn't wake up for another 30 minutes, the man asked his subordinate to call him once they were awake and to treat them with the utmost respect. A van was driving through the highway, and inside were 4 people. The man with glasses announced that detuned automatic drones surrounded the lab's perimeter. The woman grumbled that a man sneaking around was painful and asked Kumo if he was heading out alone. Kumo responded that there was no need to worry and opened a suitcase with Dr. Ivan's secret weapon. Just then, the man with glasses announced they would arrive at the entry point shortly. The gate was closed, and there was a warning sign that it was private property, so do not enter. The two were standing in front. Sasori wondered if they got lost on a hike. She was confused about whether the plan worked. She sensed that it was probably not going to work with Kumo's face. Kumo responded, saying that it was a prototype that still needed development, and they were testing it to see if it would work. As they zipped their clothes, Kumo asked the man with glasses to check if it was working correctly. The man responded quickly, saying no issues had been detected and that it usually worked. Sasori was confused about clothes, so he informed her that it was sportswear with built-in camouflage. Sasori continued yelling at Kumo, questioning what the secret feature was for. But Kumo disregarded her question. Instead, he told Sasori that he hated her so he wouldn't tell her about it. She continued yelling, and Kumo told her they needed to start their plan immediately and stop wasting his time. Kumo was ready to enter the gate, while Sasori ran behind him, asking him to wait for her as he walked towards the entrance. In the robotics research laboratory, Akiro tried to wake his dad. His dad was confused about where they were, but Akiro didn't know where they were either. His dad only remembered that they rode a cab and a driver. The door opened, and the man apologized for roughly handling the two. He also said Clark wanted to talk with Midorikawa, Akiro's dad. The man invited Akiro's dad to come with him. Outside the laboratory, security drones patrolled around, detecting possible intruders. Kumo stated that those drones use thermal and optic systems to detect human intruders. Sasori asked if the drones were safe even if they went close, but Kumo told her not to worry. Kumo walked straight, and Sasori walked behind him, and then the drones suddenly turned around. Kumo stood in front of the drone and tested whether it recognized him while Sasori panicked about what Kumo had done. Luckily, they were not recognized as intruders because of their clothes. He stated that their clothes could deflect surface heat and light. Also, it was not quite an optical camouflage that tricks the human eye, but it sends off hostile noise that interferes with AI recognition. And that was good enough for the drones and surveillance there. His little spiders were 100% pure Shocker-made products, unlike what Faust sells to the world. They would find out where those two are soon enough. There were recon drones in the ceiling. The man there said they would soon send all of that to the US military. Once deployed, they'll flip the state of warfare on its head. The Shocker's technological prowess was basically just a toy. He even asked Akiro's dad a question about Prana. Midorikawa told him that Prana doesn't just save people's lives. It is a technology with the potential to solve more significant issues like hunger and poverty. He believes they can end the wars the man loves to fight. But the man said that Midorikawa was wrong, and that they developed weapons to rid the world of war. They used them to bring justice to the freedom-loving democratic nations. The world will be at peace when justice was carried out. But even in a world like that, there will be people who turn to violence. The drone was focused on where the three were located, and the old man said that, in a search for despair, they have bizarre impulses and lose the ability to make sound judgments. That was precisely what people liked, and that would be Ivan's recruits. They found out that the Shocker was facing a crisis right now, and Ivan was a grim reaper who would bring ruin to the organization. He smiled sinisterly and leaned forward, his words carrying both threat and persuasion to Midorikawa. A loud jolt startled everyone in the room. A small, armed, and menacing drone suddenly appeared, its mechanical hum slicing through the tension. Akiro, standing nearby, his face pale with shock, stumbled back as the drone leveled its weapon. He stared at the machine, sweat trickling down his face. The man continued talking. He said that Ivan's fiction wasn't exporting him. They just got nothing to lose and a screw loose. He asked if he was willing to accept their terms. Seeing his sinister smile made Akiro recall the bullies and the man who ended his mom's life. He told his dad not to help this awful man. The man warned him he would be turned into Swiss cheese if he resisted, but Akiro didn't care. He didn't want to become the devil's companion and would rather die than help an evil person like him. All of a sudden, spider webs were launched near them. Kumo, holding a bazooka, was proud of Akiro's spirit. On the other hand, Sasori was standing near the door. The man was furious to see Ivan's experiment. Kumo jumped down and said that they attempted to take control of the research and crypto cubes through unjust threats against Shocker's code. They needed to prepare themselves. But the man yelled at Kumo and blamed him for unjustly interfering in their business. Sasori joined the conversation and said that the man might say what he was doing was just for business, but his eyes would turn back on him for that. The man stared at Sasori angrily and said there was no love or peace ahead of them. Sasori wasn't satisfied with their argument. Instead, she invited the man to a fight using their bodies. He stood up in the center with a sinister face and called all the military drones to help him. That would be their final test. His face suddenly changed, and he was confused about why the drones weren't moving. He ordered them to kill Ivan's people. Sasori immediately ran towards him and reached for the man's neck and started to strangle him. After what she did, she annoyed him by saying that the drones were bugged out, and the man asked her what kind of trick she pulled. She wants the man to die. Suddenly, the man fought back and hit her in the flank, causing her to swell. Worried, Ikiro shouts her name. Kumo didn't expect what the man did. The man faced Kumo and asked whether he thought he was the only enhanced human there. His voice was full of teasing. Sasori's protective suit was torn, and as a result, the drones would recognize her. She didn't like playing with toys, but that should keep her entertained. Upon recognizing Sasori as an intruder, the drones attacked her. In the middle of the space, Kumo and the man were trying to defend themselves from each other. The man gave him a kick that resulted in his suit becoming punctured. Kumo teasingly told the man he couldn't keep up, but the man would show him which of them needed to keep up. He laughed, saying that although Kumo claimed to be an enhanced human, Kumo seemed like flesh and blood to him, and he thought that the tech of Kumo wasn't up to snuff. He grabs Kumo's shirt and says he is a plague in this organization. Kumo spits some web at the man's face, covering his eyesight. He saved that shot in case he needed to escape with his life, but at that moment, Kumo was determined to end that there. Kumo rushed forward but received a punch from the man. While the man continued assaulting him, Sasori and Ikiro were worried for him. Seeing Kumo's face, the man mocked him for being ugly. Ikiro noticed a drone and became worried that it could see Kumo's eye. He ran towards it, and at the same time, the man was about to punch Kumo's face. The moment the man landed a hit, Ikiro managed to catch the drone. Luckily, the final blow didn't hit Kumo. The man was having trouble with his vision, so Ikiro commanded Kumo to do it now. Kumo screams loudly before charging and hitting the man with all his might. On the other hand, the drone launches fire while Ikiro is trying to stop it. Kumo raises his arm, ready to launch the final attack. Conversely, horror can be seen on Midorikawa and Sasori's faces. After smashing the head of the man, Kumo heard Midorikawa shout his son's name. When he turned, he saw Ikiro lying on the ground, bathing with his blood. Midorikawa worriedly asked his son if he could hear him, but Ikiro wasn't responding. His dad held him while Sasori and Kumo stared at him either. They were wondering if a stray drone bullet struck him. He was hit on his chest, which was terrible. His dad told them to take him to his lab immediately. While he was lying, he wondered if he was going to die and, if ever, could see his mom again, or if it was an endless black void. He was amazed while floating with butterflies all over him. He wondered if that was a river of light or another world. He was laid on the hospital bed with apparatuses on his head. His dad called him with tears and sadness in his voice. He asked his dad if he saved him, and his dad replied that he saved him with the help of his research. He gave credit to the power of prana. It was a wholly new technology that brought them closer to solving the mystery of life. If they could figure out how to control its power, they could protect life in ways no existing medicine ever could. And bringing him back from the dead on the piece, he thought they had just proven that. Ikiro asked him if he could save more people if he kept researching. His father replied with a proud tone, of course. He was into saving everyone's lives and protecting everyone's happiness, but they would have to fight for that to create a new world, a world where people like his mother didn't have to die. Sasori leaned against the wall, listening to their conversation, and Midorikawa came out the door. She went to the hospital to check on Ikiro because she was worried. Midorikawa told her not to worry because the procedure went perfectly. She asked him if it was fine to keep acting like a good person, and if Ikiro knew the cost of the technology he was using. Midorikawa turned and paused for a moment. After that, he asked her if he would excuse him. She stared at him directly, saying that getting betrayed by parents was deeply painful. She knew it by experience. Later on, Ikiro still had the apparatuses. He removed them one by one and started to run on a treadmill as fast as he could. Kumo appeared at his back and was surprised that he was running already. He invited Ikiro to go out a bit and get some fresh air. After that, they were in the forest. A bird landed on Kumo's hand, which amazed Ikiro, and he said that the bird had missed Kumo. Kumo replied that he fed him from time to time and informed him this was his favorite place to relax. Ikiro thanked Kumo for helping him, but Kumo could vaguely remember seeing Ikiro run over to him before he passed out. Ikiro told him he saw his face because his mask was broken. Kumo pulled off his mask, and he revealed his face. He revealed it was a testament to his sin of leaving a loved one to die. He burned himself as a punishment for betraying a wonderful person. Kumo despised the humans who scorned him and drove him to his death. He thought it would be better if humans didn't exist. But Professor Ivan gave him hope to become something other than a human. Ikiro was confused and asked if the one he loved wasn't a human. Kumo hates humans but wishes to keep children safe because the person he loves is innocent and naive, like a child. Ikiro was a child, too. He would need a stronger heart and body to survive in that organization. If Ikiro chooses, Kumo could train him to become a real warrior. Since he saved his life, he owes Ikiro that much, at least. On the other day, Kei and Ikiro had a conversation while walking. Kei was told that Kumo would be his trainer. But Ikiro said that if Kumo wasn't training him, he wanted to be trained under Kei. He needed to catch up and talk to his dad as soon as possible. He wanted to be strong enough to protect his research and his life. Kei assured him that was the plan all along. That was how Ikiro became a member of the Shocker. They saved his life, and he believes that their research would make the world a better place. With that, Kumo trained him to become as skilled as they were. Dr. Midorikawa, on the other hand, was confused and asked Kumo if something was wrong with Ikiro. Kumo replied that not only had Akira recovered from the injury, but his body was getting stronger rapidly, so he asked Dr. Midorikawa about what he had done to Akira. Dr. Midorikawa happily confirmed that the procedure was a success. The procedure increased the life of his son's capacity tenfold. The prana injected into him in large amounts was to revive him, gradually taking hold and strengthening his body. He was new to the shocker, and Kumo asked him if he was sure that he had the experience to pull it off. He was worrying and said that an ordinary mind cannot control a superhuman body. Dr. Midorikawa asked Kumo if that was what he believed, and he said that he knew because he had seen a lot of failures. Dr. Midorikawa knew of the risks, but that was the only way to save his son. Besides, he had to give his son the strength to not have to take anyone's life and never to lose a family member again. The robot spoke and asked Akira if he couldn't sleep. Akira was only wondering why Kumo killed the bad man. Kumo was a good person, but he didn't know why he killed somebody. The robot did not know what a good or bad person meant. It was still learning, but it found out that sounded quite profound. Even those who are categorized as good people end up killing other people when they become soldiers. Humans, indeed, are interesting. Akira had been feeling a little weird lately. His body was getting stronger. He felt like there was more to it than that. He had been restless, especially at night. Confused about what he felt inside his body, he wondered if there was another living thing. There was a shadow in the door. He hoped that it was his dad, but it was Kei who informed him that his father was busy researching more ways to treat him, so he hoped he would accept him for a while. Kei thought having someone beside Akira would help him set his mind at ease, so he decided to come. He gave a signal to Akira to relax himself. Kei confirmed that Akira's relaxation has begun, and told him that relaxing music helps people relax more easily. Akira considered Kei's suggestion. He lay down on the bed and said that the music was pretty. He asked Kei if that was from opera, but it was a motet. This was a French word. The word's meaning depends on the period, but it was any piece of religious music other than Mass. This piece was by Vivaldi, one of the most famous composers of the late Baroque period. The name of this piece was Nulla in Mundo Pax Sincera, and the translated meaning was that there was no true peace in this world. Akira fell asleep, and Kei held him and lay on another comfortable bed. Forget the world's sorrows. He hopes Akira finds peace as he rests. Meanwhile, two men were inside the building. One was Koga. The man wearing a face mask and a cap beside Koga gave him the victim's identification card. They found out that he belonged to FOSS, the Ishigami group. They were seen in the news recently. Apparently, some foreign bigwig died in a Cessna crash or something like that until they found out that it was a little fishy. On the FOSS organization, the old man explained that following Clark's outburst, someone killed Marayama, who was helping Midorikawa with his research. After the death of their founder, Shocker had grown without a top-down chain of command. But they had reached their limit. He believes they need a more hierarchical structure to strengthen their governance. Dr. Ivan asked them if they hadn't first tried to get to the bottom of the matter. The old man suggested leaving it to the police. However, the woman interrupted the conversation, expressing her confusion. She asked the man if he was serious about his suggestion to involve the cops. After that, they were inside the car, and Dr. Ivan told Midorikawa they hadn't decided anything. At the same time, Midorikawa was thinking about his research partner, Marayama. If only he hadn't invited him to join the Shocker. Dr. Ivan replied that every person at Shocker was there for humanity's happiness. He believed Marayama was also ready to sacrifice his life for the cause. There was no need to dwell on it for long. However, how audacious of them to have Clark die so peacefully in a common accident. Midorikawa asked him if they were seeking revenge for his death. Dr. Ivan replied that they were likely trying to prompt the police to investigate their organization. Unlike their weapons development efforts, their research involves much more human involvement. It would be more difficult for them to dodge the cops if they were on their asses. However, they no longer have time to waste. They need to concentrate on the plans they have been working on. At the training hall, Akira was about to start training, but he was confused about why Kumo had not trained him again. Meanwhile, in this lab, they bid Kumo farewell. After warming up, Sasori told Akira to come at her with all he got. Akira threw a punch, but Sasori blocked it with her arm. Sasori noticed that his power and speed weren't normal at all. She thinks Akira was worried about hurting her, but Akira was serious. He gave her a kick and was about to follow with a punch, but Sasori let him taste her kick. She apologizes and clarifies that she must use the same force level. She was controlling herself because he might die if she didn't go easy on him. However, she realized she didn't need to worry about that anymore and thought he was awesome. Now that he is tough, he wants to fight in his own way. She thinks it's an awesome idea, but Akira corrects her pronunciation, saying it was awesome, not awesome. She hugged Akira and revealed she was doing it on purpose. She was just testing whether he was keeping up with his studies with Kei. She squeezed Akira's cheeks, and he asked her when Kumo would be returning. She replied that to tell him the truth, she had been wondering about that little mystery herself. Akira was stunned. Meanwhile, men in black suits with masks are standing before Dr. Ivan. Dr. Ivan said that Clark called him Shinigami, which suited him. In order to protect Midorikawa from them, he will now forcefully eliminate the old executives who defiled the Shocker's name. Midorikawa was confused and asked who those guys were. They were Dr. Ivan's combatants who volunteered to do their part, even if it meant giving up their bodies and souls for the cause. He couldn't have done that without Midorikawa, an enhancement surgery that is effective for everyone. Dr. Ivan's traditional methods would often drive those who underwent them to insanity. However, by applying Midorikawa's neuroscience technology, he developed a procedure that keeps their minds intact. But that's not all. They can also control their minds from the outside, which is just as impactful as the enhanced strength. Because of Midorikawa, Dr. Ivan's plan for the coup is ready to move onward. From the bottom of his heart, he thanked Midorikawa and told him it was time to put the finishing touches on the plan with Ayanakaji. Later, Ikiro irritably tells Kei that he is the only one left in the dark again. Kei apologized to him and said Sasori attended a strategy meeting for the coup, and he insists on being his partner in the meantime. Ikiro was confused about the coup, so Kei revealed that Ivan and all of those on his side would soon be attacking all the FOST executives who had been there since its inception and, at the same time, take control of the organization. Ikiro wants to be part of that operation, but Kei declined. They wouldn't do such a thing because he was still a child. He shouldn't involve himself in such dangerous adult conflicts. Ikiro told him that common sense like that didn't apply to them in a shocker. After a while, Kei apologized to Sasori for bringing Ikiro, stating that he felt a strong sense of determination toward Ikiro and that it was a shocker's duty to make his wishes a reality. Knowing Ikiro's wish was to eliminate violence in the world, Kei wondered why Ikiro resorted to such violence himself. Ikiro wants to come to stop Sasori and Kumo from killing people because he believes that they should just catch the bad guys, not kill them. He insisted on coming, but Sasori reminded him of his dad. Ikiro begged her to keep it a secret, but Sasori turned away and called him a bad boy, saying he was playing around without informing his dad. Still, she told him that the operation was in 3 days, and she didn't care what he wore as long as he had protective gear underneath. She warns him not to leave her side during the operation. The day of the operation had come, and Ikiro was ready. Sasori was amazed. He looked extra handsome today. Ikiro and Sasori wore helmets before riding the motorcycle. On the other hand, Kei watched over them while they were going out. Meanwhile, Kumo woke up and broke the capsule. Dr. Ivan smirked, stating that it wasn't good. He thinks Kumo's mind is breaking down and plans to intervene, but Kumo tells him his ego endured it. He may be reborn as a new life form, but he has not forgotten his sins or the sins of mankind. He tells Dr. Ivan to look at his body, stating that from today forward, his name is Kumo Augment 01, the first of Shocker's non-human synthetic augments. Inside a restaurant, Sasori told Ikiro to eat because they still had time before the operation started. Other than them, Dr. Ivan's squad will handle the rest, and Kei will be in charge. She was about to inform him more when this man borrowed the table and chairs beside them. With a winking face, she politely told him to go ahead. The man thanked her, and his daughter was confused and asked why her dad was shy. The man replied that he was not, but the daughter assumed he had become shy because Sasori was a pretty lady. Ikiro was staring at them, saying they were normal people and just living their normal lives. Yet there they were, planning for a big battle. He felt like they were living in a different world from them. On the other hand, Sasori was trembling. She apologizes to Ikiro and asks to fetch him water because she needs to take her meds. After drinking the Shocker mystery meds, Ikiro asks if something is wrong with her, but she just tells him to give her a second and that she will be all better soon. When the pain eases, she informs him that it has been a while since she had a flashback, and it really scared her. She had heard some things from Dr. Ivan that the ones they were trying to take down were the founder factions or the FOST group. However, those groups referred to her, Kumo, and Ikiro as the Despair faction. The three of them experienced some form of despair, things that were enough to make them curse the world. But to regular people, they are just some events they saw on the news. She looked above and agreed with what he said earlier, that they live in a different world from other people. The kid approached her, and as a thank for earlier, she gave Sasori a lollipop. For a killer like her, she thinks it doesn't suit her, but Ikiro assures her that he won't let her kill again. Sasori flicked his nose as she stated he was starting to get a big head and warned him that all enhanced humans ended up going down this path. Ikiro thinks Sasori was right. He was getting a big head. Back then, he was lost in another world and almost died. His body's changes were taking a toll on his mind, yet he felt happy for some reason. He had friends who accepted him. Since he has power now, he feels like he has become a hero. A voice suddenly heard from their helmet, and it was Kei. Kei informs the two that Kumo has undergone a new enhancement surgery and has awakened as Kumo Augment 01. Kumo was on the way to join them with some combatants. Meanwhile, inside the elevator, the CEO of the FOST network, who is already married, was trying to flirt with this girl but was baffled when the elevator opened and they saw these combatants. On the other hand, Kei decided to begin the operation. The CEO tried to warn the combatants by stating his position but stopped when Kei spoke through the phone. Kei apologizes for the absurd visit and tells him that in order to carry out Ivan's plan to revitalize Shocker, they have decided to detain all of them by force. Since they use Shocker technology for things that deviate from their ideology, the Eye wants to restore this organization to how it was before. The CEO shouted that they were just machines who couldn't make value judgments on their own, but Kei stated that the era was over. From this point forward, they will only allow people that they have deemed worthy to use Eye's creativity. Only those with strong happiness and unhappiness are fit to be Shocker executives. Meanwhile, Sasori and Ikiro arrived at the factory. Ordinary people saw this factory as a natural resource mining facility, but if one looks hard enough, they will find something else. Ikiro asked if it was the Shocker founder faction base. Kumo, who had just arrived, confirmed it and added that those people may be developing technology that they don't even know about now. While Ikiro was excited to see Kumo, Sasori was a little bit disappointed. Kumo told them it was time to work and added that they would use the spoils from their last battle to guide the regular employees. Inside the factory, the drone fired bullets at the employees to drive them away. After seizing the monitor control room, Kumo ordered them to force the underground gates open. On the other hand, Herman's assistant informed him that the basement was under attack by FOST's drones and a group of men in masks. Herman angrily ordered him to activate all the guardians and destroy all the intruders. Before entering, Kumo warned his comrades that the enemy from here would be armed. The combatants were the first to enter and used their shields to block the directional weapons attack. When the shield recharged, the combatants retaliated by firing their weapons towards the security weapons. Upon opening the second gate, they were greeted by this robot. One of the combatants was about to shoot, but was destroyed by the robot. Sasori told Akiro to stand back and then kick the robot. When she entered the gate, many robots were in there, and she didn't manage to dodge a surprise attack from a robot. As she thinks these robots are tough, Akiro helps her by kicking one of them. Sasori warns him it's dangerous inside, but Akiro insists on fighting. Sasori notices Kumo isn't fighting, so she asks him to fight with them. To her surprise, Kumo answers that, based on his observation, he will lose if he fights. Sasori yells at him, asking what he is talking about. Her attention turns to Akiro when the robots attack him with laser beams. She quickly comes to help and kicks the one who is holding him. She then threw him to the side, and after tossing one of the robots towards Kumo, she told Kumo that she was gonna have to let him lose today. Hearing those words made Kumo recall his past, and these words were the first to flash into his mind. As a human, I could stand by your side. To stand by your side, I had to be a human. Sadness enveloped his soul as he looked at his portrait with Kusuk. At the school, kids were talking about Kusuk and how he admitted he was gay. And then one of the kids called Kumo addressed him as Masa, asking if the news of Kusuk being gay wasn't bad news. Kumo's inner self ordered him to respond to those kids and not let them talk about Kusuk that way. He was advised to be brave and stand for Kusuk. But Kumo just rode with the kids and answered that it was pretty awful stuff. He cried as he blamed himself for Kusuk's death. He hates himself for having a cowardly attitude. The inner him offers to give him some courage. He will transform him into a more pure and beautiful being. After that, Kumo is back in reality and is destroying this robot using his hand. He screams like a wolf and charges towards the enemies, defeating them one by one. Seeing that the Guardians had all been destroyed, Herman's assistant suggested mobilizing all of their high-power normal weapons, but Herman disagreed, stating that their organization would be revealed to the outside world if they did that. He walked towards the door and planned to negotiate. While Kumo told Sasori that he still had his sanity, Herman arrived with clapping hands. He praised Ivan for his cyborgs and was about to say his proposal, but Kumo didn't want to hear his nonsense and pierced his chest. He then dropped Herman's body to the floor and was about to end its life, but Akiro stopped him, telling him not to kill anybody because it wasn't part of their mission. Kumo clarifies that their mission was to take over this base. Whether the enemy general lives or dies, it doesn't matter as long as they accomplish their goal. Herman called him a demon, so Kumo turned to him and declared he would hurt him with malice. Akiro told him to get a hold of himself. Kumo noticed his clenched fist and asked if he was going to stop him from using it. He wondered why he was willing to risk his life for a man like Hernan. For Akiro, no matter what kind of person someone is, a human life still has value. Kumo wondered if it included the human who murdered his mother, adding that Akiro was still poisoned by common sense. A human life has very little inherent value. If one wants to hunt, then one can just hunt. Life becomes surprisingly comfortable once one accepts that fact. He told the kid to be brave, abandon humanity, and live in a world of beautiful beasts. Even if Akiro was full of rage and violence, his soul would be clean. What he was seeking was the joy of living in nature. Akiro told Sasori to take care of Herman because he would stop Kumo. Akiro thinks that running into despair with nothing else to do, there is no way to fix or forgive Kumo's self. By trying to cast off his humanity and return to a natural state, Kumo is trying to find a distorted sort of hope. That's how Akiro thinks of it now. But at that moment, when his mother died, he was just a child and didn't understand things like that. All he felt back then was sorrow. Seeing they enjoyed themselves fighting, Sasori wanted to join, so she confronted Kumo, stating that she would definitely be sad if someone cute like Akiro was gone compared to this ugly old fart. She was amazed Kumo kept his sanity and inquired if he was still there. To Akiro's horror, Kumo pulled away her arm and grabbed her by the neck as he threw her decapitated arms. He lifted her up and stated that anyone who interfered with his hunt would not be forgiven, no matter who it was. Earlier, Sasori told the combatant that if they can't stop Kumo, they must ask Kei to brainwash him even though it was permanent. The combatant contacted Kei, but Kei answered that he wanted to put his decision on hold for now because he had a feeling that there was still some hope. Akiro stood up, trying to stop Kumo because he didn't want to lose any more people he cared about, including Sasori and Kumo. Kumo was shocked when Sasori disappeared from his grip. He turned around and saw Akiro holding Sasori, stating he wouldn't give up and had hope that everybody would make it home alive. He stood up and faced Kumo, declaring his word as a promise. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you love this manga. Have a good day.